Or someone is found guilty by men, as Jesus was. It doesn't mean that he's guilty in the sight of God.
Many people today believe in God and are interested in spirituality. Yet instead of turning to organized religion, they choose to practice spirituality on their own. Why? Some have been disillusioned by religiously based violence and the hypocrisy of religious leaders.
So, among the reasons some may either choose not to be involved with or leave an organized religion is because of the hypocrisy of religious leaders. The picture in the video depicts a religious minister being arrested by police. There is no indication as to what crime he is alleged to have committed. But leaving that to one side, this is what the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, a religious organization, gives as a valid reason as to why some who love God choose to practice spirituality on their own. This raises a number of questions. Have there been any alleged reports of criminal activity among leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses? How has the organization responded to these allegations? Has there been any that have left the religion for this reason? If so, how have they been treated? Let's address the first question. Have there been any alleged reports of crimes among leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses?
We're back with NBC News In Depth tonight, an exclusive investigation into yet another religious organization hit with sexual abuse allegations. The Jehovah's Witnesses have settled 9 lawsuits alleging church policies protected men who abused children for many years. In settling, the church did not acknowledge wrongdoing. Now, evidence has surfaced that leaders did know about some of the men, but apparently never informed authorities. Our senior investigative correspondent, Lisa Myers, has our exclusive report tonight in depth.
Frederick McLean is among the country's most wanted fugitives, accused of molesting children for almost a decade.
His typical victims were young girls, I think starting around 5 or 6 years old.
Authorities say McLean, who restored race cars, was a respected leader in this congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses.
His role in the church was significant because we believe that his participation in the church gave him access to his victims.
The Jehovah's Witnesses recently agreed to pay to settle a lawsuit that alleged the church knew or should have known McLean was a pedophile. One of 9 similar cases church headquarters settled without admitting wrongdoing.
But internal church records now coming to light in those lawsuits show that the church knew for years that some prominent members were sexually abusing children and did little.
Example, James Henderson. Documents showed the church knew he was abusing kids as early as the 1970s and stripped him of his leadership role for a while, but apparently never alerted police. He was finally arrested in 1994 and went to prison, having molested children for 2 decades. Another church leader, Alvin Hurd, confessed to the church in 1981 that he'd abused 3 children, ages 5, 9, and 11. His local congregation kicked him out and alerted church headquarters. But again, the church apparently never notified police. Hurd, now in prison, admits he molested other children until 2003.
Good morning, everyone. We are here today to announce the 49th Investigating Grand Jury has voted on and approved presentments for charges related to 4 individuals for committing sexual abuse throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The cases that we are here to announce are deeply disturbing, the allegations hard to imagine, while all sharing one common tie. The 19 victims and 4 men who are being charged with sexually violating them are all members of the Jehovah's Witness organization. Most of these defendants used their faith and church to gain access to their victims, to build their trust, and then molested them.
I'd like to take you back to the beginning, to the background on this case. Some of you may recall that in October, this office announced criminal charges in 4 cases in 4 different Pennsylvania counties against 4 members of the Jehovah Witness organization for sexual assault and exploitation of children. That investigation started as a resource referral from a local district attorney's office. And when we received it, we began to investigate that case and gather evidence. Through that investigation, we learned of several incidents of sexual assault committed by members of Jehovah Witnesses congregation. After a 3-year investigation, hundreds of hours of grand jury testimony, and dozens of witnesses, we filed charges against those 4 individuals. And at that time, when we announced those charges against the 4 individuals, we asked for people to come forward, for anybody who had something similar like this happen to them, to reach out, to call our hotline and come to us. And many courageous survivors came forward and called the hotline. So as a result of our ongoing investigation and the individuals that reached out to us on our hotline, we are here today to announce these charges. Is Norman Aviles, 44, of Lancaster County. It is alleged that he sexually assaulted 3 minors who were between the age of 5 and 10 years old. He was an elder in the Jehovah Witness congregation, which allowed him to build a rapport with members. He gained the trust of several parents, including his own relatives, which gave him extensive access to young girls in the congregation. He was trusted to babysit and even act as a guardian to one of his victims. The grand jury heard testimony from 2 of his victims that described that he groped their bodies and assaulted them. A 3rd victim testified to frequent unwanted touching, including groping. He has been charged with aggravated indecent assault, endangering the welfare of children, and corruption of minor. We have a duty to protect children in Pennsylvania. These children deserve a community where they can grow, play, learn, and pray, and not be preyed upon. Our office will never stop working to bring justice for those who have been victimized. We will continue to investigate and prosecute anyone who takes advantage and harms the most vulnerable in our society.
These are just a few examples that have been reported in the media within the last few years. And these cases are not unique to the United States, but have occurred in many other countries as well. Typing Jehovah's Witnesses child abuse in a Google search will reveal many more examples of reports made around the world. So this is not just a problem that the Catholic Church has had to deal with, but Jehovah's Witnesses as well. How has the organization responded to these allegations? In a talk entitled "Put Up a Hard Fight for the Faith," which was given at the 2020 One Powerful by Faith Regional Convention, here is what governing body member David Splain had to say about media reports in the criminal justice system.
So suppose a report indicates that someone has been charged with a crime or that he's being investigated. All right, you have 2 words, charged and investigated. It doesn't mean he's guilty. Or suppose that someone is convicted and put in jail. Well, that would apply to our young brothers in Korea, wouldn't it? They were convicted and jailed. And what was their crime? They refused to kill someone? Did they do anything wrong? Or someone is found guilty by men, as Jesus was. It doesn't mean that he's guilty in the sight of God. So, brothers, we really have to think about these things. We may read that a person or an organization was sued and then settled out of court. Does settling out of court mean that they were guilty? Not necessarily. Now, in this country and others, court cases are often handled by a jury. Now, who are on the jury? Ordinary citizens with no legal training. But not only that, these ordinary citizens don't always have access to all the facts, because the judge and lawyers decide which facts will be shared with the jury. So it's unlikely that the whole truth will ever come out in court. Actually, neither side probably wants the whole truth to come out in court. Now, sometimes attorneys deliberately withhold information that would be prejudicial to their clients. And in addition, the juries have prejudices like everyone else, and some of them just can't set their prejudices aside. I'll tell you an actual experience. Some time ago, a lawyer told me about a case he had. That was a case of medical malpractice by a doctor. There was a jury, and at trial, the doctor was clearly shown to be in the wrong, but the jury didn't give the patient a penny. The lawyer was confused, so after the trial, he approached two of the jurors and asked, "If you don't mind, tell me which part of the testimony you didn't believe." The jurors replied, "Oh, we didn't get that far. The doctor was cute, and we didn't want him to have to pay anything." With deep thinkers like that, no wonder many lawyers try to settle their cases rather than bring them to a jury.
So, according to Splain, when it comes to allegations of wrongdoing on the part of Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't trust the media, the lawyers, the judge, or the jury. The implication is only Jehovah's Witnesses can be trusted. Does that sound reasonable to you? Remember, the video posted by the Watchtower organization on their website said that because of this, many choose to practice spirituality on their own, apart from a religious organization. But what if someone was a victim of abuse by a religious leader of Jehovah's Witnesses? Is it possible that they might want to leave the organization and prefer to worship God on their own? Have there been any cases of that happening? If so, how have they been treated?
The issue is that for some people, the circumstances will be such that they just can't stay, and they will find it necessary for their own survival, effectively, to disassociate. But the consequence of that is they are shunned and lose all of their prior social structure. That's the issue. And you heard the evidence that some people gave about that issue. That's the problem.
If I could, Your Honour, with respect...
That doesn't happen in other parts of society, generally.
Again, Your Honour, with respect, and I certainly don't want to be protesting a point...
Say what you believe to be true.
Thank you for that. The Commission has consistently, and we respect the right of the Commission to draw the conclusions and counsel assisting, but the Commission has consistently failed to acknowledge that individuals who want to leave the organisation of Jehovah's Witnesses, no longer be an active member, can do that by conflating someone choosing to no longer be an active member and someone specifically disassociating themselves, saying, "I just don't agree with the organisation anymore, I don't want to be a part of it," are two totally separate things. And again, with respect, we just make the point
that was inherent in what I just put to you, but the consequence of dissociation, as we understand it, is that that person will be shunned, and that means they lose contact with family, friends, and everyone else who remains inside the Jehovah's Witness organisation. Is that right?
Again, Your Honour, the person...
Your colleague is nodding. Is that right or not?
Well, because you've said disassociated, Your Honour, but he or she can choose to be no longer an active member of the congregation.
I understand that, but if they are so unable to cope with what's happened and the way they've been treated inside the organisation that they dissociate, then they lose all of their previous social structure. Is that right?
That could be the case, and we respect their right to make that decision.
Well, it's a pretty cruel way of dealing with someone, isn't it, who has suffered sexual abuse.
I could only repeat what I've said, Your Honour.
No, but it's cruel, isn't it? To take away by reason of the rules that you impose, all of their social structure. That's cruel.
So, according to this, if a member of Jehovah's Witnesses were to resign from the organization because of experiencing abuse, all those that remain in the organization, whether they are friends or family members, are required to shun them. What do you think about this policy? Does it sound like something Jesus Christ would approve of? Notice also that a person does not even have to make a formal written declaration of his resignation. He or she can also be considered as having done so by his course of action, whether by joining another religion, the military, or even by accepting a blood transfusion. If you are currently one of Jehovah's Witnesses, is this something you approve of? Is it really the case that in order to gain salvation, God requires that a person must be in association with an organized religion? Let's ask that another way. Did Jesus ever say that a person would be destroyed if they were not a member of a religious organization? As an answer, I invite you to watch the video entitled, Who Are the True Worshippers? Part 3. Does God Need an Organization? But for now, I think an important indication can be found in Jesus' discussion with a Samaritan woman recorded in John chapter 4. The woman said to him, Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our forefathers worshipped on this mountain, but you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where people must worship. Jesus said to her, Believe me, woman, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, because salvation begins with the Jews. Nevertheless, the hour is coming, and it is now, when the true worshippers will worship the Father with spirit and truth. For indeed, the Father is looking for ones like these to worship Him. God is a spirit, and those worshiping Him must worship with spirit and truth. John 4. 19 through 24. Does this mean that it is wrong to belong to a religious community, a church or a group that regularly assembles to study the Bible? No. Jesus is further recorded as saying, Where there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name, there I am in their midst. Matthew 18:20. But notice he said 2 or 3. Not 2 or 300 or 2 or 3,000. He did encourage his disciples to meet together for encouragement and support. But nowhere did he, nor any of his disciples, say that it was required to remain in any situation if the environment were unhealthy or toxic. In Matthew 11:28 through 30, we read these words, Come to me, all you who are toiling and loaded down, and I will refresh you. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am mild-tempered and lowly in heart, and you will find refreshment for yourselves. For my yoke is kindly, and my load is light. Matthew 11:28 through 30. If he urged the Jews of his day to come to him for refreshment, instead of being weighed down with the burdens placed upon them by their religious leaders of what was considered God's organization of his day, why would he not say the same thing to those desiring to worship God today?